What's up? Welcome to the Dopest Historian's Corner. We're going to be talking about some vocabulary words related to Black history for Black History Month. Today's words will be discussing racism, chattel slavery, abolition, Jim Crow, and segregation. Again, the words that we'll be discussing today is racism, chattel slavery, abolition, Black codes and Jim Crow, and segregation. If you're wondering why I'm looking down, I do have my content book right here in front of me. That way I don't miss out on any notes that I want to give you. So let's start off with racism. Racism is the system and beliefs that deem that white people, the white race is superior to all other races, but specifically Black races. Again, when I'm talking about these vocabulary words, I'm talking about them in the context of Black history for Black History Month. So racism is when white people have systems, feelings, ideas, philosophies, political, economical, all of those things that say that they are superior, better than, deserve more than, the best, the greatest, whatever, than Black people who they say are less than, inferior, don't deserve as much, deserve to be treated less than, like a who cares types mentality. Racism perpetuates the mentality that, hey, one person is greater than the other, so the better person will live a better life than the lesser person. There is no equality, and that is one of the words that is used a lot when we talk about Black history and Black History Month. The equality, civil rights movement was about equality, but when we're talking about racism, basically equality is not a thing when you talk about racism. Next word that we're going to go to is abolition. Abolition is to stop. Online it says to stop something, to end something. Or when we're talking about abolition, when it comes to Black history, we are talking about the abolition of slavery, to stop chattel slavery, and that's one of our vocabulary words as well. But just to stop slavery in general in the United States. The people that fought for the abolition, or just the stopping of slavery, were called abolitionists. And again, these are words that are thrown around a lot when we're talking about Black history, specifically during Black History Month. Frederick Douglass was an abolitionist. A lot of your prominent Black figures that were talking out loud against slavery were abolitionists. Abolitionists are not just confined to Black people. Abolitionists are also white people, or just anybody who. So chattel slavery. Chattel slavery is what the Americas participated in. I do not just say America. We have the Americas, with an S at the end, North America, South America, in the islands as well. We know that chattel slavery did exist in North America and South America. And we also know that slavery was also a little harsher, actually, in the South Americas. But also, so let me say this as I get into it. When we talk about slavery, I actually don't like to talk about who had it worse and who had it best, but for just relative terms and just to kind of get a concept or an idea, I do try to just say, what the historians say or whatever. And yes, we do know that slavery in the South America was harsh, as was the slavery in the South of North America, okay? So yeah, with chattel slavery, people were bought, sold, and forced to work without wages. Chattel slavery was different than the other forms of slavery that we know. So indentured servants was the type of form of slavery. Sometimes, or sometimes you would just be known as a slave, or a prison of war type of slave. You would be known as a slave, but you wouldn't necessarily be considered like chattel slavery. Chattel slavery, you literally was just seen as a piece of property. You were literally like nothing. You had no rights to family. You had no rights to your life. They did not allow you to read and write. They did not allow, you had no say so in what you wanted to eat per se. Like chattel slavery, you did not own your life if you were a part of chattel slavery. Let's get that very clear. Chattel slavery is one of the worst things that could have happened in human history. And you know, we celebrate and we talk about Black History and Black History Month because at the end of the day, African Americans, their descendants went through chattel slavery, and we still have not been compensated or received our reparations for such tragedies that have happened to us. But let me get back on track. I just want you to know that chattel slavery is the reason, is the foundation, and it's not the foundation, but to be honest, it is one of the foundations of how we get to Black History Month. If we did not have chattel slavery, if the Americans, if the white people, whoever, the colonizers did not take Africans from the shores, bring them to America, and then continue the institution of racism and chattel slavery, separating families, sending them across country, sending them there, selling them here, killing them there, taking babies, raping women, raping men, raping children. If that did not happen, and to create the descendants that we have today, if that did not happen, then we probably wouldn't really necessarily have a Black History Month. We probably still have like an African History Month or whatever tribes that we would be in today. Those histories is what we will be talking about today. But because that did happen, and because we were victorious despite of. Hey, we now have a Black history. The next words that I'm going to talk about today is the Jim Crow and Black Codes, or a better word, let me put it in the order that it goes, the Black Codes and then the Jim Crow. Pretty much one and the same, but the Jim Crow laws would actually become enacted in the late 1890s, 1900s from just pretty much Black Codes getting another word, because after the Civil War, Black Codes were put in place by states and locally and by the states, so that Blacks could not function in the new world of being free slaves. So they put in codes about employment. They put in codes about just being, being free. Like you couldn't just, hang out around by yourself if you wanted to. You always had to be doing something. You couldn't be out after a certain time. There was just different laws that made it very hard for Black people to just have a normal life in their new America. And so these laws continued over time, and it also caused a type of separation, and one of our words is segregation, and segregation is separation. So it caused this type of separation between the societies of Black and white people. And so one day, Plessy versus Ferguson in 1892, this is a court case, Plessy decided to pretty much challenge this separate type of thing that was going on with the Black codes. In the end, it backfired, and it instituted the separate but equal as legal and enforceable. And that separate but equal did not get dismantled or taken apart until the Civil Rights era, with Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and everybody fighting and marching for equal rights, right? That's what that whole thing was. The separate but equal was a sham. It never was that. It was just a way for white people to perpetuate their racism. Racism is the name of the game since the beginning to the end. If you know nothing else, racism that's the big thing over all of this. Racism is what keeps this thing going. If there were no racists, then if there were no racists letting racism happen, we wouldn't even be talking about all of these other type of vocabulary words, if we want to be honest. But let's continue. So yeah, the Jim Crow laws came in the late 1800s, early 1900s, to keep Black Americans in the inferior status. So in the less than status, so what racism is about, then white people saw them in. And so, yeah, I told you guys how segregation came as a result of Plessy versus Ferguson. And the Jim Crow laws made sure that separation was enforced in every way possible between Black people and white people. And it was not until the 1960s that this was dismantled. But all right, you guys, that is the 4 or 5 vocabulary words that I have for you today. Again, we talked about racism, chattel slavery, abolition, Jim Crow and Black codes, and segregation. Actually, I didn't get into segregation. So let me get into segregation really quick. I talked about it a little bit at the end, but yeah, segregation equals separation. And a lot of people try to get mad at MLK because he did fight for he fought for equal rights, right? The whole thing was that we didn't necessarily want to integrate. We wanted equal. That the white people swear that it was separate but equal, but that was it was a joke. It was never that. It was always a racist undertone under that, and you saw that in everything that was presented, from the schools to the movie theaters to the stores to the restaurants to the roads to the neighborhoods to the politicians. Everything, the separate but equal, was not really that. And so Martin Luther King fought for equal rights. He wanted the same things. He wanted the same things that white people got. If they could get good cold water fountains, why can't black people get good cold water fountains? If white people could get nice event venues, why can't black people get nice event venues? The argument was not that they should be able to do it together. White people made it that, okay? Do not be confused. But that's another tangent. But I just want to tell you guys about segregation. Segregation is separate, right? Segregation does not mean separate but equal. Segregation is just literally separation. Segregation, separation. Black people over here, white people over here. White people try to say segregation is separate but equal. It's not that. Segregation is just separate. We didn't necessarily say that segregation was bad. What we said was bad, what black people thought was bad, was the separate but equal. That was a lie. Separate but equal was a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie. Yeah, a lie. But all right, you all, that is what I have today for you guys. Vocabulary words for Black History Month. To start off, racism, chattel slavery, abolition, black codes and Jim Crow, and segregation. If you have any questions, comments, leave them down below. Reach out to me. Nothing else, go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, share. And yeah, for Black History Month, we get into the dopest Black history. We get into the dopest Black history all the time, but y'all know we gotta go live for Black History Month. But all right, you all, thank you all for tapping in. I'll see you all later. Talk to you guys later. All that good jazz. Peace out.